Welcome to Conspiracy Deconstructed. Today, we are plumbing the depths of something truly strange. A global phenomenon that's so widespread, honestly, so bizarre, and just unnervingly universal, that it really forces us to look again at dreams, at, the power of the internet, and maybe even the deep structures of our collective mind.
We are diving into the mystery of a face apparently seen by thousands, maybe even millions of people all across the globe. And the weird thing is, it's a man they've never met. He's described as strikingly ordinary, yet he shows up in their dreams, their most private experiences. He's known simply as this man.
Okay, I have to stop right there and just ask you, listening right now, have you ever seen this face? Because the reports, they're chillingly consistent. People describe, a middle-aged guy, thick eyebrows, maybe a receding hairline. And his expression isn't really threatening, but it's not friendly either. It's just there, utterly inexplicably present. And for a lot of people, that consistency, that shared dream, feels like proof of something. Something paranormal, maybe. Or spiritual.
Well, our mission today is a bit complex. We're not really setting out to validate if this man physically exists, walking around somewhere. That's almost beside the point. Instead, we're doing a deep dive, a forensic analysis, really, of the psychological stuff, the sociological forces. What causes such a shared feeling, such a global experience? We want to understand how a modern myth like this can tap into something so ancient in the human psyche.
Right. And to do that, we're looking through two main lenses, aren't we?
Exactly. Two powerful, interconnected lenses.
First, we got to look at the sources that show how fast modern myths and hoaxes and urban legends get cooked up and spread online. It's like digital folklore.
The modern transmission method. And second, we're diving deep into the psychology, the enduring power of these archetypal figures. We'll be drawing a lot on Carl Jung's work, obviously, but also studies on perception, memory, how our brains even process faces.
So it's the intersection of technology and the deep old parts of the unconscious.
This is going to be fascinating. Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start right at the beginning. The birth of this myth. The sources we looked at are, they're pretty direct about it. The story of this man. It's labeled straight up as a deliberate internet hoax.
Yeah, that's the first key thing.
Which then kind of took on a life of its own, right? Became this self-sustaining urban legend.
Precisely. And tracing it back to the exact starting point is crucial to understanding its power. We have to know how it was made.
So where did it actually begin?
That starting point, it defines the whole thing as modern folklore, not some ancient mystery bubbling up. This man literally originated online in 2009. It all started with an image, a composite sketch. And this sketch was deliberately created and then promoted by an Italian sociologist and marketing strategist, a guy named Andrea Natella.
A marketing strategist? Seriously? Seriously. Yeah. Natella's goal, apparently, was to launch a viral marketing campaign. It's sort of guerrilla marketing thing to explore, the power of suggestion and how you could maybe create a spontaneous global myth online.
Wow. Okay, so this wasn't people organically reporting, hey, I saw this weird guy in my dream. It was planted.
It was absolutely manufactured. Natella set up a website, thisman.org, I think it was originally called, uploaded that sketch, and then fabricated a backstory. Claimed the first person to see the face was a patient of a New York psychiatrist back in 2006. And the description was deliberately vague, just those generic features you mentioned earlier.
Joint eyebrows, receding hairline, just average.
Exactly. And here's where the genius of the hoax comes in, if you want to call it that. Natella seeded the story. He claimed that after that first report, suddenly 4 other people recognized the face from their dreams. He made up testimonials. Yeah. Suggesting the psychiatrist shared the sketch with colleagues, and then suddenly it snowballed. Hundreds, then thousands of reports globally. And that structure, that's completely different from how old myths used to spread.
Absolutely. You think about traditional folklore, like the Brothers Grimm or something. It was slow, local, passed down by word of mouth. It needed people to actually be there, talking. Stories changed slowly over time, adapting to different places, different dialects.
It took years, maybe centuries, for a story to travel.
Right. If you had a local ghost story in, say, the 1700s, it might take ages just to get to the next town.
But the digital world, it completely flips that script. Natella just puts up this website, makes it look kind of plausible, adds some freak stories, and then relies on us, our basic human desire for secrets, for shared experiences.
And boom, instantly global.
Instantly. A story, even one totally made up like this, can hit every corner of the world in hours. No physical barriers, no geographical limits, just spread.
And the very thing that lets it spread so fast, the internet, is also why it's well, unreliable.
That's the double-edged sword. The research on how stuff spreads online, especially these network studies, like that Zanetu paper from 2019 on decentralized platforms, it shows this really complex picture.
What did they find?
Well, these platforms are amazing for spreading information. Yes, good information too. But they're just as good, maybe even better, at spreading lies, sensational stuff, damaging narratives. And the crucial part is the speed. Stuff spreads way, way faster than anyone can possibly check the facts.
So a piece of clickbait, like the sketch,
Can get shared millions of times before anyone reputable says, hang on, this was cooked up by a marketing guy in Italy.
the hoax gets a massive head start. It's like a race that always wins.
Exactly. And the rapid worldwide spread of this man, I mean, reports popping up immediately in different languages, different continents, that is the defining feature. The story's power wasn't in its truth. It was in its viral structure, its marketing.
It sounds like the internet created the perfect petri dish for this kind of legend.
That's a good way to put it, a context of fertility. In the old days, slow spread meant time for stories to be forgotten, or questioned, or filtered out. Online, the sheer volume, the hyperspeed, sensational hoaxes just outrun any kind of critical thinking.
And if you see it enough times,
It starts to feel real. That's the illusory truth effect. Repetition breeds familiarity, and familiarity feels like truth, especially when you pair it with a picture, an image that sticks in your head.
it's like those other internet urban legends, isn't it? Slender Man, maybe? Or those email chain scams from years ago?
Similar mechanism. This man was perfectly designed for the digital age. It taps into something universal, our fascination with dreams, which are inherently personal, totally unverifiable. Combine that with the lure of being part of a secret, a global collective mystery.
And suddenly, 1,000 people in 1,000 different places can instantly compare notes online about this face they supposedly saw.
And right there, the hoax transcends its marketing roots. It becomes a real, living, modern myth.
So the website, the sketch, definitely planted. But the reaction, the fact that people genuinely started reporting seeing him, that part was real.
The reaction was authentic, yes. The belief, the subsequent reports of similar dreams, that's the psychological payload.
Yeah.
We absolutely have to separate the origin, the deliberate hoax from the resonance. Why did it resonate so deeply?
Okay, that's the key transition then. We know the image was faked, but if it's just a hoax, why are so many people genuinely feeling this connection? Why are they actually seeing this unremarkable face in their dreams? They aren't pointing to photos or documents.
No physical evidence.
They're pointing to the shared powerful feeling, the subjective experience.
And this is where it gets really interesting. The psychological evidence, the reasons this story hits home hard enough to feel true.
So what's the first big claim from the believer side?
Okay, the first major claim, and this is rooted deep in Jungian psychology, is the idea of the cosmic man archetype. Proponents argue that the very anonymity of this man, his total lack of distinguishing features, actually makes him the perfect vessel for a huge collective symbol.
The cosmic man. Okay, what exactly is that? Explain that archetype for us.
So Carl Jung, through his research into what he called the collective unconscious, identified these things called archetypes. Think of them as universal, ancient patterns or images. They come from our shared human experience over millennia. And the unconscious mind, it often tries to personify its own core, its own regulatory center, the force that tries to integrate our psyche, which Jung called the self.
Okay.
And in the dreams of men, particularly, this self figure often shows up as like a masculine guide, an initiator figure, a spiritual teacher, maybe a wise old man, or even a spirit of nature, a guardian.
And the sources we looked at say this figure, this cosmic man idea, it pops up everywhere, right? Across cultures, across history.
Oh, absolutely. It's incredibly universal. The cosmic man is the ultimate symbol of, totality, creation itself. See it in Adam, the first man, in Jewish, Christian, Islamic traditions. There's the Persian Geomart, his body supposedly became the first metals and seeds when he died. Or the Hindu Purusha, his sacrifice literally created the cosmos and the social order. And in China, there's Panku.
Panku, wasn't he, enormous? A giant whose body became the world.
Exactly, a colossal divine man. His breath became the wind, his voice thunder, his eyes the sun and moon. These are massive foundational creation myths, all stemming from this idea of an all-encompassing great man.
But hang on, Panku creates mountains. Geomart is cosmic life. Adam is the progenitor. How can this man who is defined by being utterly average, totally unremarkable, almost bland, possibly represent that?
But that's the clever part, or maybe just the inevitable way it manifests now.
Yeah.
The argument is that in our modern world, our rational, fractured world, the ancient image of the great man can't just show up as a god or a giant hero anymore. We dismiss it instantly. Our skepticism kicks in.
Right, we'd just say, that's crazy.
Exactly. So instead, the unconscious, seeking to represent that totality, that wholeness, it finds the most neutral possible vessel.
Yeah.
The most generic template.
The unremarkable man.
He fits the profile of that inner guide. There's this concept from the Naskapi hunters, an indigenous group in Canada. They talk about the mistapeo.
Mistapeo.
Yeah, it translates roughly to great man, but it refers to this immortal inner companion, a psychic reality inside them that guides their intuition, their hunting, their fate. It's not external, it's internal.
Wow. So their survival literally depended on listening to this inner companion.
Precisely. And the argument is that the generic face of this man bypasses our modern conscious defenses. If the unconscious is trying to give form to the integrating self, this totally neutral face is maybe the closest thing we can handle now. It's a universal, non-threatening template that doesn't immediately scream mythology or religion.
He's like the inner great man shrunk down to passport photo size.
Kind of, yeah. Which leads us right into the second claim proponents make. This one focuses on the feeling he evokes, archetypal symbolism, and numinescity.
Numinesity. That sounds important.
It is. So dreams talk in symbols, right? Symbols that bubble up from that deep collective layer of the psyche Jung talked about. The key thing about this dream face isn't supposed to be its literal look, but the powerful emotion people feel when they see him.
What kind of emotions?
Well, dreamers often report feeling this weird urgency or a really compelling sense of familiarity, like they know him even though they don't. Or sometimes deep discomfort, unease.
And that feeling, that charge, that's the numinous quality.
Exactly. Numinescity, or the numinous, describes something that feels sacred, maybe, deeply mysterious, something that inspires both awe and maybe a little bit of fear. It feels significant, powerful.
Yeah.
And Jung argued that when an image like this supposedly shared face gets charged with that kind of emotion, it gains psychic energy. It becomes dynamic. It forces you to pay attention. It demands consequences in your psyche. You can't just brush it off, even if you consciously think, oh, it was just a weird dream. The feeling sticks.
So the believers would say, look, if thousands of people are reporting the same emotional charge linked to the same image,
then it can't just be random pizza drinks, right?
Yeah.
It must be an authentic symbol rising up from the collective unconscious, something instinctual.
Okay. And that connects to the third psychological claim.
It does. The third claim is about the need for synthesis, or what Jung called individuation. The idea here is that these powerful archetypal images tend to show up most vividly when our psychic life is under threat somehow, or when we're desperately searching for meaning, maybe feeling lost or chaotic inside.
So when things feel broken or fragmented, we subconsciously look for things that represent wholeness.
Exactly. Individuation is basically the core process in Jung psychology. It's this lifelong journey toward becoming integrated, whole, complete as a person, moving towards psychic wholeness.
And how does this man fit into that?
Well, the argument is that the collective experience of dreaming about this mysterious man suggests a universal need, a species-wide psychological drive. It's as if the collective psyche itself is trying to integrate the unconscious parts with the conscious parts on a massive scale.
So the shared dream figure is like a mirror, reflecting a collective unease, a hunger for meaning.
Could be. The generic man, this placeholder figure, forces people to ask, why him? Why us? Why are we all connected in this bizarre way?
And just asking that question, regardless of whether the man is real, starts that individuation process.
That's the idea. It kicks off the search for meaning and integration. It suggests our psyche needs this integration. And maybe because modern life hasn't given us a universally accepted spiritual framework anymore, the psyche just grabs the first available blank slate, this anonymous manufactured face, and pours all that numinous energy into it.
So the power comes from the need itself, which is very real, even if the trigger image is totally fake.
Precisely. The psychological need is authentic, deeply so, even if the catalyst is synthetic.
Okay, that's a really compelling case for why people believe built on some pretty profound psychological ideas. But now we have to shift gears. We need to put on our critical thinking hats and really look at the evidence presented.
Time for the deconstruction.
Yeah. How does the brain actually handle ambiguous stuff like this? How does a group experience warp perception? Because the evidence for this shared dream might actually be powerful evidence for how our brains are just designed to work, or maybe even designed to fail sometimes.
Right. And the number one primary non-supernatural explanation for why people might recognize this face is a cognitive bias called pareidolia.
Pareidolia. That's seeing faces and things, right?
Exactly. It's the brain's tendency, it's almost hardwired to find meaningful patterns, especially faces, even when there's objectively nothing there. It's pattern recognition overdrive.
It's seeing, I don't know, the man in the moon, or shapes in clouds, or Jesus on a piece of toast. We've all done that.
Constantly. Our brains evolved as massive pattern recognition machines. It was crucial for survival, right? Recognizing faces, friend or foe, very quickly. We even have a specialized part of the brain, the fusiform face area, that's basically always on the lookout for faces.
It was primed.
Highly primed.
Yeah.
Which makes a vague, kind of generic, unremarkable image like this man incredibly susceptible to this bias. The brain just snaps it into a familiar face category.
And it's not just faces, is it? There's a broader term, apophenia.
Yes, exactly. Apophenia is the bigger umbrella term. It was coined by a German neurologist, Klaus Conrad, back in 1958. Apophenia is the general tendency to see meaningful connections or patterns between things that are totally unrelated. Gambling fallacies, conspiracy theories often rely on it.
Oh, okay.
Pareidolia is just the visual part of apophenia, seeing shapes and faces. So this man is like the perfect storm. You've got a random, meaningless image triggering pareidolia, and then it gets instantly wrapped up in this big, meaningful, global story which hooks into apophenia.
It's amazing how long people have noticed this tendency. You mentioned Leonardo da Vinci.
Yeah. Da Vinci, who was obviously a super keen observer of everything, he actually wrote about this. He encouraged artists to look at, like, stains on walls or smudges, embers in a fire, and find inspiration there. He called it a way to arouse the mind to various inventions. He knew the mind would instinctively project forms, faces, battle scenes, landscapes onto random chaos.
So the This Man sketch is basically the modern equivalent of a random stain on the wall.
Pretty much. It's vague enough that almost any individual brain can look at it and go, oh yeah, that looks like someone. It clicks into place as a recognizable human face. It's a survival mechanism being hijacked, really, for a viral hoax.
Okay, that makes sense. What's the next point in the deconstruction? You mentioned the ambiguity itself.
Right. Point 2 builds directly on that. The ambiguity of the unremarkable man enables projection.
Projection, like psychological projection.
Exactly. And ironically, we can use a Jungian idea here to dismantle the Jungian cosmic man argument. If the face is truly generic, truly unremarkable, its very vagueness makes it a perfect screen for us to project our own internal stuff onto.
Our own stuff? Like what? How does that work?
Well, Jung talked a lot about the shadow. These are the parts of ourselves we don't like, the parts we deny or repress, our selfishness, laziness, hidden fears, weird fantasies, insecurities.
Things we don't want to admit about ourselves.
Precisely. And because we don't want to see them in ourselves, we unconsciously push them outward. We project them onto other people, often strangers or public figures, or even vague images like this.
We make them carry the weight of our own denied faults.
And this generic, this man face, it's the perfect blank canvas. Why? Because he has no identity, no history, no personality attached. He's completely empty.
So people aren't seeing some universal deity.
No. They're projecting deep meaning onto him because they're unconsciously recognizing something from their own shadow, their own unacknowledged self.
The face feels significant because it's acting like a mirror, reflecting their own psyche back, but disguised as this shared mystery man.
That's the argument. The emotional charge, that numinosity we talked about. It's not coming from some collective archetype buzzing around. It's the energy charge of your own repressed personal material surfacing.
That makes sense. If the face was really distinct, like if he always wore a specific hat or had a unique scar, it would limit who could project onto him.
Exactly. It would constrain the meaning.
Right.
But because he's just a statistical average of features.
He becomes a sort of universal psychological container. Anyone can pour their stuff into him.
Perfect way to phrase it. He's a statistical average made compelling only because the internet amplified him.
Which brings us to the final piece of the deconstruction, right? The internet's role again.
Yes, the final and maybe the most concrete mechanism. The feedback loop of expectation. This is how the urban myth really takes off and sustains itself online.
How the hoax becomes a seemingly real psychological pattern. Explain that loop.
Okay, so the whole phenomenon feeds itself. The moment that original image and the story of Natella's 2009 hoax hit the internet, every single person who might later report dreaming of him was potentially exposed. consciously or unconsciously. You might have scrolled past an article, seen the image in a meme, read about it on a forum.
So even if I just glanced at it years ago and completely forgot about it consciously, that exposure still counts.
Oh, absolutely counts. It's highly relevant. The sources on dream formation confirm that our unconscious mind processes information we aren't even aware of. It examines stuff, anticipates things. So being subconsciously exposed to that face and the weird story attached to it, it plants a seed. It preconditions your unconscious.
Okay.
Then later, when you dream, your brain is sorting through the day's anxieties, random memories, looking for material. And it might just pull up that pre-existing emotionally tagged image of this man because it's already there, waiting.
And then when I wake up, having dreamt of that face.
It feels like spontaneous proof. It fulfills the expectation set up by the online story. It reinforces the myth in your own mind.
And then I might go online, report my dream.
Adding to the evidence and perpetuating the loop for the next person who stumbles across the story, it creates this illusion of a genuine, collective, instinctual pattern.
When really it's just mass subconscious suggestion, people absorbing a single viral engineered image.
Pretty much. The widespread knowledge of the story gained from the internet actually comes before the dream reports, not after.
So the dream isn't proof that the collective unconscious is sending us messages through an archetype.
No, it's arguably proof that the collective unconscious is highly suggestible and, frankly, very good at browsing the internet and picking up weird ideas. The dreams are like manufactured echoes in a digital chamber.
It completely flips the claim on its head. It's not, the man exists, we dream of him, we talk online.
We see him online. He appears in our suggestible dreams. We report it as proof he exists.
And because dreams are, by their very nature, totally subjective, you can't verify them, you can't fact-check someone's inner experience.
The cycle is basically unbreakable. Natella, the guy who started it, probably knew that. The one place skeptics could never definitively debunk the claim was inside millions of individual dreamscapes.
Right. So we've pretty much established the man is likely a hoax, kept alive by quarks of our own psychology, pattern recognition, projection, and amplified massively by these digital feedback loops. But we can't just leave it there, can we? Dismiss it all. As we wrap up, we have to talk about the human element. Why is this story so sticky?
We really do.
Why does it provide comfort or meaning or significance to so many people all over the world? Because clearly it's tapping into something real, some kind of need.
It absolutely is. And that gets us to the idea of the story serving as a kind of antidote to modern rationalism. Our sources, particularly those drawing on Jung and related fields, talk about how modern consciousness, civilized thinking, has gradually, over centuries, cut itself off from its instinctual roots. We've really aggressively tried to strip the world of mystery, of that numinosity we talked about, mainly through focusing purely on rationalism, science, materialism.
Like, the Enlightenment was great for logic, but maybe not so great for the soul, in a way.
From a certain psychological perspective, yeah, you could argue that. It can leave us feeling disconnected, alienated, what Jung called a neurotic dissociation, cut off from healthy instincts, from a sense of wonder or mystery in the world.
Modern life can feel pretty routine, pretty disenchanted sometimes.
Exactly. We've often replaced mystery with predictable routine. And so this man's story becomes incredibly appealing, incredibly sticky, because it feels like it spontaneously injects the mystery back in. The holy, the numinous, suddenly appears in your very ordinary dream.
It's like a little psychic rebellion against the mundane.
You could see it that way. People are drawn, maybe unconsciously, to the feeling that there's something else going on.
Yeah.
Something deeper than just science and logic and the daily grind. Something guiding things, connecting things. The idea of a universally shared dream figure seems to confirm that our inner world is still rich, maybe chaotic, but definitely meaningful, and that we're all part of this shared mystery together.
Which leads right into the other big appeal, the comfort of collectivity.
Absolutely. Think about it. The act of sharing this really weird, profound experience, it can be incredibly liberating, especially if you feel kind of isolated or insignificant in your daily life.
Personal impotence and misery, as one source put it.
Yeah. Your very personal, maybe confusing dream suddenly isn't just yours anymore. It's a piece of a giant global puzzle. You belong to something.
It gives the ordinary person this sense of having a secret insight, right?
Right.
Participating in this hidden, universal psychic event that cuts across all the usual boundaries, race, language, culture.
In a world that feels increasingly fragmented, hyper-individualized, finding any sense of collective identity, any shared secret knowledge, even if the basis for it is synthetic, like this hoax, is deeply comforting. It creates instant community.
It connects back to that Nascapi idea, too, the mistapeo, the inner companion.
It does. If you suddenly feel like millions of other people are encountering a similar figure in their inner world, it makes your own inner world feel less lonely, maybe less crazy. It confirms your experience rather than isolates you. You're not alone with your inner companion. Maybe everyone has the same one.
So it really is the perfect modern myth in a way, born from the internet, amplified by how our brains work, but ultimately feeding this really ancient, deep hunger we have for connection, for mystery.
A hunger that modern life often leaves unsatisfied. The psychological resonance is totally authentic, even if the face itself is completely fake.
Maybe the collective need for a shared vision, for that connection, is the most real thing about this man, after all.
That's a powerful thought.
So we've traced it all, from this bizarre internet claim, through the psychology of archetypes and projection, landing on this profound human need for mystery and connection. Before we finish, here's a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. It draws on some ancient wisdom. In the mystical Jewish tradition, Kabbalah, there's this idea that the soul of Adam, the very first man, actually contained within it the souls of every single person who would ever be born, like a single candle wick made of countless tiny strands. It expresses a totality, a oneness beyond individuals. So here's the question. If this image of this man, this generic face, is just the collective unconscious grabbing a viral placeholder, using a hoax image to represent that ancient idea of totality or oneness, does the very act of recognizing that shared image, even knowing it's a hoax, maybe bring us a tiny step closer to feeling that oneness? Does the shared recognition itself start to fulfill the need for integration, regardless of the image's reality?
Is the recognition itself the integration we're craving? Could a manufactured hoax accidentally achieve an ancient psychological goal?
What do you think? What does this whole this man phenomenon say about us right now? Is it a sign of a global psychological wobble, or maybe some strange new kind of connection forged by technology? We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Thank you for joining us for this very deep dive into the strange world of this man.
We'll catch you next time on Conspiracy Deconstructed.